Okay, anybody with some questions?
Good afternoon. My question has to do with that user story. The persona has a user story that goes through it. What's the best way to try to gather some of that information? At our department, we have a lot of user stories. There's a lot of information out there, and just looking for some ideas about a good way to start collecting that and drawing out that roadmap so that we can start to provide that content a little more, make it a little more targeted, and that way whenever we make these upgrades, introduce columns to the website, et cetera, we're able to incorporate what their needs are sufficiently.
Sure. I have a very simplistic answer, which is talk to users. Go out and actually spend a little bit of time on user research, and you can actually hear from people directly how they interact with your site, how they interact with your services. A lot of people, I think, have a misconception that user research has to be very time-consuming and expensive. You don't need to do a lot of it to get some information. I would say even a little bit of direct information from your users is better than none at all. So if you're not already doing that, that is a great place to start. You can even start, simplest way would just be to put a survey up on the site. Just have it run for a little bit of time and just gather some information from people about what their path is and where their needs are or are not being met. And you might be surprised by what the perception is versus what you think you're seeing from the inside.
Yeah, I can just kind of, to add to that, also take a step back and first identify your user base, because for an agency, sometimes we look at them as, okay, majority of them are coming for this, but yes, survey is going to help, like why are they coming there? But once you identify the user bases, then you can actually build personas for them, and then you can have a customer journey map per persona. So maybe a business looking for tax information might have a different customer journey than, say, an individual looking for information, or an individual actually looking for their returns, the status. So there are like scenarios, and then there are your personas. And then combining both of them will actually, kind of give you a good template to then start plotting your customer journey.
And I think for governments, that's what I think is kind of challenging, is because they're, for us, I mean, everyone pays taxes. So how do you narrow that down? And it's very overwhelming to start.
Right, and this is from where we see two users differ. Like someone might have a very well connected environment around them to look for information, while somebody might be struggling for the same level of information. Those are going to be two different users, even though the purpose is the same. And once you understand that, and I'm saying you in the sense us as agencies, we kind of then start building, that experience journey for them. And, as Jordan mentioned in his talk, like then we find out where those friction points are, because those are the touch points that, we really need to be aware of.
With regard to omnichannel, are you a sponsor, or were you, as I understood it, you were sponsoring the event? What is the name of your company?
Here, I'll say this one into the mic for our marketing department. Phase 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
now I know
2.
who you are. Okay.
Phase2technology.com.
Okay, so now I didn't realize you were Phase 2. I kept hearing omnichannel. Okay, well, thank you. That clears up a lot. And you guys are consultants and enablers, or what is?
We try to be.
Okay.
Yes, we build digital products. We consult on technology and on content strategy. Okay. We've been working with GTA for quite some time now, helping to sort of design and build out the platform. And we are currently doing a lot of work in the realm of omnichannel, trying to help our clients and organizations understand what it is, how it applies to them, and how much of their resources they should really be investing in it.
Right, and that's great. The user, what was it, the user journey? Is that what you had up there? That particular slide, is that downloadable? Is that available somewhere?
So, thank you. Take it. So by design, I made that slide too small to see. I mean, yes, you can certainly get a copy of the slides, but I wanted to more get the concept across as opposed to use that specific template. There's a lot of different ways to do user journeys. For the purposes of this talk, I didn't really have one method or another that I would recommend. There are some good books out there. O'Reilly Media has a good book on them, as well as Rosenfeld Press has a good one on user journeys. There's a lot of articles and information you can get out there about them. I don't know if it's going to be part of the persona workshop at all.
Not the user journeys, yeah. But we will do that at some point.
Okay, yeah, so that'll be an upcoming topic. But yeah, user journeys are very powerful, and there's a lot of different ways to do them, so I didn't want to say this or that way was necessarily the correct way to do it.
Well, thank you. I found your presentation quite informative.
Thank you very much.
And I'll jump in on that one just a little bit. Gotta get the right. We're going to do the persona thing in the workshop later on today, and then this winter we're planning on doing some more content workshops, hands-on offerings, so that some agencies can come and we'll look at analytics and just kind of talk about really cleaning up content and doing some hands-on, smaller group settings. If user journeys is something that we hear a lot of interest in, we can talk about sort of making a next step of doing a couple user journey workshops as well.
So I've heard a lot of talk about a lot of great ideas and destination of where we're trying to go to. Do you have any kind of concept regarding a plan and a timeline as far as how fast you want to get there?
I can. It should be happening right now, honestly. I'm not sure. Are you a platform agency? Is your website okay? Okay. So what we are doing now is we are working with a lot of the agencies that are hosted on the Georgia Gov platform and doing exactly this, working with them on their content strategy. We are doing a bunch of redesigns for them, and not just from a visual perspective, but also from a content perspective. And if this is something that you want to be part of, I think this is the one-on-one engagement that we have with every agency. And this is more of just, a story that we wanted to kind of get out about, like, what are we trying to do here? Because as technology keeps changing, we want to make sure that we are prepared from a content perspective to adapt to it whenever that gets to it.
Data related, do you have a way coming up where we can get our internal data onto the external site, so that, like, traffic data and stuff like that?
Yes.
Absolutely. So some of the slides that Johan showed, they are part of this data platform that we are building right now. And we would love for agencies to host their data sets on that. At this point, what we are trying to do is it's a data repository. And it's capable of hosting any kind of data. What it does, it normalizes it. And then we can apply visualization tools on top of that to make it show whatever story you intend to. And then you can take a snapshot or you can embed that in your website. So it's not going to be, unless you choose to, like an external experience. It can actually be part of your existing web experience.
So we're close to launching a data sort of portal repository for anyone who's available, and that's really just depends on each agency's appetite for opening up available data. And you can just throw it up there on this portal, or we can then work to help you visualize it either on that portal site or for your individual website. So it's definitely, we're ready for those conversations. We've been piloting a couple of agencies right now. Unfortunately, no, and because that's something that always boggles my mind too, but the amount of data and how much it would take to kind of kick back and forth that information, it's like the bandwidth just becomes too much. So it is something where you have to export it, and then we can kind of suck it in and display it and kind of come up with a schedule for how often you update that data.
Good question. And if anybody's interested in the data visualization functionality, just see one of us or see me after the GOVTalks, and we'd be happy to talk to you more about it. Any other questions?
Going back to a prior point about effectively being screen agnostic from a responsive standpoint, one of the challenges we're finding, may not be the first time you've heard this, but 65% of our traffic comes from a standard screen, standard computer, 25% from mobile. When you shrink the screen size down, so we're designing really for the most customers at the 65%, left to right. When you go mobile, it goes top to bottom and it goes more column. That's a challenge for us because we want to recognize that a lot of people are coming from a mobile standpoint and being able to cater to them, i.e. they're probably coming for some kind of an online service, so we want to try to get those over to the left, but it doesn't always present well when you're putting it on a big screen. Are there any plans to try to make that a little more congruent between the responsive platforms?
Not in the D7 environment that we're in right now. And it is something that we've looked into in the past. Because I think really, Michael, what you're talking to is, hey, I'm laying out my website homepage on a desktop, and the way that I'm laying it out there looks great on a desktop. But when it starts stacking, for mobile, then whatever was prominent on the right suddenly is way down on the page. We have looked into how much would it take to be able to sort of customize each of those. And honestly, the lift, the cost, and the time involved was going to be just way more than what made sense for the handful of times that someone would need it. But it is something that's sort of on my wish list roadmap for when we build out D8, something to consider and see what we can do about that.
And also, this is maybe where your user study might help. Like desktop users, what are they looking for? And mobile users, what are they looking for? And I'm not saying they're always going to be looking for different things, but there might be some, revelation that you might see, like, okay, then this is maybe how I need to structure for my mobile usage.
So I'm thinking about the personas, and there were a number of fields on the persona that you showed up there. And it seems like it's easy enough to figure out what those fields are from a few conversations and surveys, but it seems like it should be challenging to get those fields instantiated with a large volume of data. For if you have a large, if your customers are the citizens of Georgia, you've got 9 million potential individuals that are going to fit in there. How do you get the data for those individuals into those fields for the persona so that you know when someone comes on, or do you not have to do that?
I would say that's a great question. And, April Linton, right after this session, is going to do a very deeper persona workshop. So I'm pretty sure she can address that. But just to briefly answer your question, not to just totally push it off, personas kind of are a generalized, collection of your user base and the overall segmentation within that base. Like your persona really should be more of a fictitious depiction of your user base. So it's not so much around like the real data as much as the data that you collect as far as where people are coming from, what they might be looking for. And a lot of times the agency or the subject matter experts might give you that information because the people they deal with, the people they talk to, they have a good idea who they are, what their challenges are. A lot of times call centers have a really good, kind of insight into some of the challenges of people calling in, what they're trying to do, kind of collect all of that data together, and then you kind of, build that persona. But I'm sure April will get a lot more detail into this when she actually does a workshop.
Also, keep in mind that the personas you begin with may not be the ones that you work with all along. Right? Personas are certainly something that you should revisit over time and iterate on as the data that you have changes, and as you see, as you're able to spot patterns and trends in the data, it's always a good idea to go back and revisit those and revisit your user journeys and make sure that you still have a somewhat accurate representation of what's really going on.
So do you have multiple personas or one persona for everyone?
You can have multiple. I mean, normally you do have multiples, but, try to contain them within maybe like 4 or 5 or 3 or 4, the key, right? Like the 80% of the people trying to find most of the things on the website. But yeah, I mean, to Jordan's point, that keeps changing along with everything else. As our mobile traffic grew, our personas got very different. Now, these are the mobile users, which was not existent about 5-6 years ago.